We are back in with another live for this episode of Mysteries with a History. And today we're talking about UFO and alien encounters around the Mediterranean. I'm very excited for this episode. And we have our co host back, Jimmy Church of Faded Black Radio. I'm going to bring him in and we're going to get just straight into it. Jimmy, happy Thursday. How are you?
I am good. Wow, it's great to be back, Christina. I missed you, missed your audience. 3 weeks, man. 3 weeks on the road.
Oh, I
Oh
know.
man,
Long.
yeah. I have to tell you, I love traveling. I love meeting people and getting out there and cultures and all of that. And taping. I'm now taping Beyond Belief. That announcement is out. That premiered last week. And so doing all of that, yeah, it's a lot of fun. But I gotta say, I get home and I walk in the front door and I'm just so happy to be back in this beautiful country of ours. But then, of course, back here with you and your audience. And I miss you guys. Miss you guys. I'm out there learning. I'm out there, getting stuff together that I can share with everybody. And that's what I'm doing. Yeah, it's a little fun too. It is. It is. Not gonna lie.
Just a
It's
touch.
pretty fun. It's pretty fun. You know what I did do? And then we'll get straight to it. We've got a lot to discuss today. One of my favorite subjects, the Mediterranean. I went down at Sacsayhuaman. I'm not young anymore. I went down this stone slide. It's a natural slide at the top of Sacsayhuaman that everybody slides down. I've been up there many times, but I've never done it. And go do it, Jimmy. Do it, do it, do it, do it. The crowd's chanting. Everybody's got their cell phones out. And I got to do it. And I did. And I almost broke my leg. Yeah. The video, I came down. It was so fast and I impacted the ground and my leg. I thought I broke my leg. I heard it break and it was really, really bad. Anyway, so I'm fine. I ripped out a bunch of ligaments in my muscles and things. I'm fine. I didn't break anything, but it almost ruined the entire trip because that happened at the beginning of it. Ambulance, the whole thing. Yep,
Oh my
got it.
gosh, that is crazy. Well, it is so
Yeah,
great to have you back. We all missed you here. People were asking, "Where's Jimmy?" And I'm like, "He's coming. He's coming." And then here you are. And this episode, there's going to be a few cases that I didn't know about. And I think we should start off with maybe the most interesting one that took place in Italy. And I'm going to share my screen here. While Jimmy, you give us a breakdown on who this person on screen is and what the heck happened.
yeah. Now, this is known as, it's framed as the Zanfretta incident, which incidents, by the way, we need to make this plural, uh, because of what happened between 1978 and 1981. Now, he was a security guard, a night watchman, if you will. And this took place, and it's you can find it, but it's a small village called Tariglia. And it happened like this. Now, I'm going to say this is just northeast of Genoa, Italy. So when you look it up, it's just a little mountain village. Genoa is right there on the coast of the Mediterranean. And he, at around 11:30 p.m., was checking the garden of the Casa Nostra, not the Costa Nostra, right? Not the mafia. This is the Casa Nostra villa in the village. When he saw some strange lights in the backyard of the villa, he walks around into the backyard and he sees what he describes as, Christina, a red object, which is sitting there, and he estimated it to be about 30 feet in diameter. What happened next, and this is the first of a string of incidents, by the way, encounters, abductions, if you will. He's unconscious. He radioed his boss, and started to tell him about what was going on. And then the last thing that came over the radio was, and this is in the translation, they are not men. Hit me with it. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, Christina froze. Christina, you're frozen. Okay, I'm going to continue the show as Christina is frozen in one of the strangest freezes one could have during a live streaming show. Okay, so around 11:30 p.m., he's checking the garden. He sees the red object. He does the radio to his boss, says they are not men. When his coworkers found him unconscious, he was still unconscious. He said that he saw several figures that he described as huge, green, frightful, and ugly. And he described a mottled chin, and that the creatures were around 10 feet tall, almost 10 feet tall, had clawed feet and yellow triangular shaped eyes. Now, what is even stranger about this case is that the contacts continued. Shortly after that, on July 30th, 1979, he was patrolling on his motorcycle. He vanished again. His fellow guards found him after a long 2-hour search near Mount Fascia, where he had gone missing. Now, this time, a hypnotic test was carried out at Milan's International Center of Medical and Psychological Hypnosis. And here, Christina, he was injected with what they called a truth serum. I don't even know what that means. That's almost like a spy movie, right? Okay, the
Oh,
truth
yeah.
serum. Right? Well, so he was in, and while under during this session, he claimed that a mysterious green light lifted him off the ground and into a flying saucer. Now, let's stop right here, because over the years, he would claim to have been abducted 11 times, Christina. Now, let's back up. I want your comments on this. What do you make of hypnotic and regression and sessions, which I have done, is one thing, and especially if you have a really, really good therapist. But these, you can definitely scrutinize a session depending on who the therapist is, and you can kind of break that down. But the introduction of a truth serum, does that strengthen or weaken his case, his memories, his statements, his testimony? What do you make of the truth serum aspect of this?
You would think so, but I think one of the most compelling details about this is that the Italian police and the Italian militia both got involved, both conducted their own investigations as well, along with a doctor from a well renowned hospital. And so you had all of these very credible people looking into this. They found strange markings in the ground. They did the regression hypnosis. They did medical tests on this guard, Italian guard as well. And then on top of all of that, and one thing that we see consistently across the globe is that when there is a compelling UFO encounter, the military are very quick to follow up on that, to investigate the area. And luckily for this case, that investigation was public. And so we have limited details as to what the Italian military and militia encountered during their investigations back on in and around December of 1978. So it's truly remarkable. And the fact that he was abducted multiple times, according to the regression hypnosis and the truth serum that he took, it's very strange. And then on top of that, Jimmy, one of the doctors had mentioned that during one of their sessions, he spoke in a very strange alien language. Isn't isn't that kind of weird?
The case, when you look at it, it's very easy to choose sides in this case because the evidence on both sides is really strong. Okay? You can say active imagination, he wanted attention. The therapist was asking leading questions and planting these ideas into his head, and you introduce a mysterious truth serum into this, and then okay, so you have that side of it. It's a strong argument, but the other side is the police show up, they go out, and he disappeared multiple times, working with his coworkers, disappear. They find him unconscious. In the areas where they ended up finding him, they found large circular discolored patches of grass where he said that these craft were landed and where he sighted them. He gave very strange and interesting descriptions of the interiors of the ships, the way that he described these beings and what they look like too as well. So it's really strange. You can easily pick a side here in this case. I'm right in the middle. What we do have is 11 abductions with him, and it's never really been debunked. He's never been caught in a lie or anything like that. So it's easy to stay in the middle. I'm waiting for something in this case to tip me either way.
Did you mention what they looked like? I the power went out over here, so I missed it if you
Oh,
did.
is that what happened? Oh, by the way, I hope somebody did a screen grab. You froze like this. It was a
Oh, yeah,
face slap.
disappointment.
Yeah, yeah, it was great.
Yes.
It was great. It was awesome. It was awesome. Yeah, he described them as huge, green, frightful. They scared him, ugly, and mottled skin. And 10 feet tall, by the way, 3 meters, 9.5 feet tall, almost 10 feet tall, clawed feet, and yellow triangular shaped eyes. Very descriptive and scary, I might add.
I mean, anything that's 10 feet tall, I think would scare anybody, really.
Yeah, yeah,
But
right,
he
right.
in the reports that were collected during that time frame, there was a whole book written about it with all of the accounts and the newspaper clippings that were reported during that time frame. But the security guard had what speaking to the dispatch, and the first thing that came out of his mouth is, "These things are so ugly."
Yeah, and he said
What a
they
great
are
way
not
to have an
what.
interaction.
Right, right, right. And the last thing he said, Christina, was, "They are not men." And then boom. When we look at so many different cases in the past, it's always the last thing that was said is always the most interesting. You remember Voyantich in Australia, right? His
Of
disappearing
course.
plane. What was the last thing he said? It ain't a plane, right? You know what I mean? That's the last thing, and that's what we have here with Zanfretta. Yeah, and they always found him unconscious. Yeah, they always found him unconscious. Um,
And
Very strange.
also with that encounter that took place in December, it's freezing cold. When his men found him, his clothing was warm. It
Was
should have been
warm.
frigid,
It should have
but it
been
wasn't.
frigid, and their comments were the only way that that could happen is if he was inside something, but we found him outside. Yeah, again, that throws it onto the pile, right? Which way do you go with this case? There's a lot of strong supporting evidence for this that comes from the authorities.
And then lastly, before we move on to our next one, because we have a limited amount of time, at the very end of this practically this whole fiasco, the magistrate declared this as no crime committed because This guy was just doing his job, doing his duty. He comes across something strange in the middle of the night. He thinks it's thieves, but it's not. It's several 10-foot tall aliens that scared the bejeebies out of him. He goes unconscious. Allegedly, he's abducted multiple times. He comes out, tells everybody what happened, and the magistrate says, "No, this was not a crime. Everything's fine. Nothing to see here." And yet, the Italian police and the Italian military get involved. They find horseshoe indentations in the frosted ground back in December of that year. And then they have witness testimony on top of that. It truly is a very strange case. And I'm not going to lie, I'm surprised. I've only heard about it for the first time when researching for this show today.
Oh, by the way, happy 4th of July.
Happy
Can we
4th of
get that
July.
out? It's the 3rd of July. And fine, it's a holiday, a great holiday that actually lands on the weekend this time around. Right? Right. Not in the middle of the week. It's not on Monday. It's on Friday. So I know it's the 3rd of July, but happy 4th of July, everybody. Can I do a little side note? Can I do a Jimmy side note really quick?
Do it.
Okay. Um, I like I like all of it, but I really like ancient history. And the reason why, when it comes to UFO sightings, is because before 1900, before the Wright brothers, and before 1700, before the first hot air balloons, in 1793 in France, but before that, there's nothing in the sky but birds, right? And bees. That's it. That's all that's supposed to be there, right, Christina? If you see something in the sky in ancient history, uh, what is it? Well, I like to go and look at that and see what I can find and how they described it. We've done this a lot over the years, but there in the Mediterranean, a bunch of really cool things showed up in ancient history. I'm going to talk about two of them really quick. And Greek historian Plutarch, who we all reference, a great historian, and he just wrote stuff down. Two UFO incidents occurred in the Mediterranean in 83 BC, and another one 10 years later in 75 BC. The first was when Roman General Sillus prepared to march on Greece. As they marched onwards, they encountered a strange entity when several soldiers would catch what he calls a satyr, Satyr, described as and I'm using Plutarch's words here, strange creature who couldn't speak, but instead cried like a goat or a horse. Plutarch doesn't say what they did with it, though. However, it had to, Christina, if you're going to try to talk to something, it must have looked like a humanoid. Why else would you wouldn't question a goat? But if this creature appears human or humanoid, you would try to communicate with it. And they did. Now, isn't that bizarre? And that is in Plutarch's historical record. What do you make of that case?
That one that one's very strange, and for it to be such an ancient case and still talking about it today only tells us that it was significant enough to be held consistently in the archives and repeated from book to book to book over the what, decades, centuries?
But
So, very
2,000
interesting.
years. Yeah, 2,000 years. And that was in 83 BC. And then 10 years later, in 75 BC, during the third Mithratic Mithratic War, as the Roman and Greek armies prepared to face off. This is a famous story, but it's worth talking about. They were getting ready to face off on the battlefield when a strange object appeared in the sky in full view of both armies at the same time. Now, Plutarch says, and I'm quoting, the air opened up and there appeared a rapidly descending object resembling a flame. He then describes it as a vase in shape, right? And he said that it glowed a burnt orange color. It glowed. Very interesting. And then Plutarch says it landed. It landed in the open space between the two opposing armies. Now, guess what happened next?
Right,
Get
tell
ready
me,
with the
tell me.
dun dun dun. They ran away, the armies. The
Dun, dun,
battle,
dun.
yep,
What?
the battle never happened. Yeah. Run away. Run away. But yeah, so a large object shaped like a vase appears in the sky, and he says the air opened up and the vase came out, flaming, landed in between the two armies. It sat there and glowed a burnt orange color, and everybody cuts and runs. Part of the historical record right there in the Mediterranean.
Unbelievable, and so
Yeah,
exciting. The
yeah.
Mediterranean is not only a beautiful place, but it has so many reported UFO sightings. Jimmy, we have time for one more case. Which one do
What?
you wanna cover?
What?
I know, which one do you wanna
Okay.
cover?
Well, we only have time for one more. Okay, no, we're going to cover two because I have to
What?
do an
That's not what I
honorable
said.
mention. I have to do an honorable mention,
Oh, okay, okay. We'll let that
which
slide.
is we got to talk about the camera gas. The camera
Mm,
gas UFO videos from Turkey, which were shot in 2007 and 2009. We've talked about it a lot before on the show. We don't have to go into a big long discussion about it, but these videos are very long and very detailed, and what was captured on them is absolutely extraordinary. And again, a night watchman, right, a security guard, Yalcin Yalman, who is now quite famous, in this small coastal town of Kumburgaz in Turkey, starts shooting these videos. He's got a big telephoto lens. He's shooting this object off in the distance, and all of the analysis, I've watched these videos countless times. You can see it's up close enough that you can apparently see what looks like, in my opinion, your typical alien gray in the window. I think there's even two in a couple of shots. But again, right there in and around the Mediterranean, in this case, the coastal city of Kumburgaz in Turkey. Incredible videos, aren't they?
oh my gosh, yes, and we've covered it multiple times, and it's just one that you simply can't brush away when you talk about UFO videos and the Mediterranean. Well, to be fair, but that one, it's been looked at for a little under 2 decades now, and there still haven't been any definitive answers. It hasn't been fully debunked as of yet. It's it's a
Yeah, yeah,
really
yeah.
good case.
Amazing videos. So I had to do the honorable mention. Let's go with if I'm picking, let's go with Cusack.
Okay.
Let's go with Cusack.
Uh, ye
Why? It involves two kids. What the how we're going to get into this now. I'll hand it off to you, Christina. But we've done a lot of schoolyard, school children UFO encounters over the years. I like remember we did it was maybe a year ago, 6 months ago, we did a full show on just kids and UFOs. Remember that? Okay, what are we
I
doing
do.
here? What are we doing? Who's running the
I
show?
I
We
just
got to
got kicked
talk
out
to
of
the
StreamYard
control room.
again,
Is it the
and,
control room in Atlanta? We got to talk to those guys, you know, your staff.
me.
But there's nothing I think more compelling than the testimony of children when it comes to stuff like this, right?
That's right. We did a whole show on UFO sightings around schools and how credible those cases were since all of the children remembered the same thing, covered the same details, both verbally and in drawings. This one, this one's unique in certain ways because of what these children encountered, how they expressed the entire thing. And we're seeing a rendition on screen right here of these strange, very small humanoids entering this ball of lights, and then they just disappear.
Yeah.
But this one took place August 29th in 1967 in France, where 13-year-old Franciscos and 9-year-old Anne Marie were herding cattle, which was like a pretty normal thing for them during that time frame. And then at 10:30 a.m., the 13-year-old brother climbed onto stones to get a better view of the cows that are straying away, doing his job. But then in the adjacent field, he spotted four small figures in strange black clothing with a silken appearance. Now, take that how you want, but it's a very strange choice of words. And they stood, these beings stood about 3 feet tall, with two noticeably smaller, um, like they were just smaller than the rest of them. And then their limbs seemed unusually long. But the most disturbing part, according to these two children, is that they couldn't make out any of the facial features on these
Right.
guys.
Right.
And they noticed that these beings were collecting samples from the ground near a very brilliant, bright sphere, so bright that the children couldn't even look directly at it. And again, we are seeing a rendition of that sighting on screen right here. But then the younger sister calls out, do you want to play with us? And the beings realized in that moment that they were being watched. And so instead of like saying, "Yeah, let's go hang out and play," the figures leaped into the air, hovering over the glowing sphere before diving headfirst inside of that sphere and
Yep.
then completely disappearing. The
Right.
other three followed in sequence, and then the last being picked up what appeared to be a mirror like device before joining the others in the sphere.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
it is again, we're talking about the testimony of children. So we're gonna hear them describe something a little more simple. Adults will get too technical or this or that or let something else and opinions get into the way. The kids said, "Hey, shiny black suits, they're looking around on the ground like they're looking for stuff. They're only 3 feet tall, but the other two were like half that height. They were really tiny, and they're looking around on the ground for something. And we were like, hey, you guys want to play?" And when they turned to, because we thought they were kids, and then they turn around and look at us, freak out, and dude number one jumps in the air. He's floating around, and poop, he dives into the sphere. That's how they described it, Christina. And that's all I need. I understand everything that is going down here. So they said that the other two were watching the first one, the two smaller guys. There's four. They jump up, boop, dive. Their description, which I love, head first into the sphere. Right? That's
Only
that's
seems
it.
logical.
Yeah, that's how the kids are not, an adult's gonna, they step through, interdimensionally, they went through the edge of the sphere into the vortex. No, the kids said they dove head first into the glowing sphere. So the remaining, again, which I find really interesting about this case, they said that the fourth guy, the sphere starts to rise. He's down on the ground because he's either dropped something, forgotten something, but he was looking around on the ground. They were watching him do this, but the sphere is lifting up behind him. He spots what he was looking for, bends down, picks it up, and they can't tell what it is, but it looks like a mirror is how they described it. He looks at that, and then what does he do? Boop, head first into the sphere. Sphere takes off and disappears. End of story. Now, here's what's crazy about this case. All right, that's the police. The police recorded the incident. They interviewed everybody. They went back to the spot. They were looking for trace evidence. Um, uh, the uh, the report was written. It appeared in the local and national French newspapers, but remains unexplained.
I have not heard a case like that one before.
It's a
And
great
we've
case.
covered hundreds of UFO and alien encounter cases, but this one always stands out as a very unique one. You have multiple beings, you can't see their face, and they are jumping head first into a brilliantly bright sphere. And they're collecting samples. The samples part we've heard quite a few times. But everything else, it seems like a more unique case.
Do we have 2 more minutes? You want to squeeze in one more?
Let's do
I
it.
mean, I know you're busy. You're working with Spielberg, and you've got all this stuff going on. Christina's just, I've got to have my people call her people and get this worked into the calendar. So, is it okay? Can we stretch for 2 more minutes?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's talk about the UFO crash in Platanos, Greece, September 2nd, 1990. Happened, Christina, at 3 a.m. in the morning. What is great about this case is that lots of witnesses, and we got the Greek Air Force involved, and we always have the debunking claim from the government. So this has got a little bit of everything in it. But about a half dozen, six objects moved silently across the skies of Platanos in Greece. And now here we have our first witness. His name is Trantos Karatrangos. He's Greek, obviously, eats lamb. He was a shepherd, right, with his sheep working in the area. And he said that one of the UFOs, there were six, crashed into the ground. He said that it free fell and landed about a quarter mile away from where he was standing. And then he says that the five remaining, now this was witnessed by a bunch of people in the town, that the remaining five craft stayed over the crash landed object. And then two of them, and this is where it gets crazy, Christina. So you have one on the ground, you have five in the sky, and then three more or two more go down and land next to the one on the ground, leaving three in the air. So we started off with six. One crashes. We have five in the air. Two come down. Now, what do we have? We have three on the ground and three hovering above it. And then you know what
Sounds like a
happens next?
math problem.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is. It is. We'll follow up at the end of the show in the comments on that. But so we have three and three. And what ends up happening in front of all of these eyewitnesses, they watched this go on all night long. These lights would come down from the three craft. As look in the pictures here, everybody, the picture that is up on the screen. So these lights would come down off of the craft to the three on the ground and then return back to the ship as if it was retrieving stuff or in some kind of rescue mission. Pretty interesting sighting, isn't it? So far, it gets crazier.
Tell me more. I'm
Uh,
listening to you. Jimmy, we
man,
missed you.
I,
Everyone's heard me speak for the last several weeks.
oh,
Tell us.
okay. All right. I'll keep going because the sun rises. What happens next? The,
Uh,
the Greek Air Force shows up.
Shocking.
And yeah, the Greek Air Force shows up. And the witnesses that were there before the Greek Air Force showed up, they went out to the crash site and they started grabbing stuff.
Mm.
Yeah, they were grabbing debris, metal stuff. They even described grabbing wires and cabling and circuitry stuff, and they took it home with them. Still missing, still not around to this day. But then the Greek Air Force shows up and they started a cleanup operation, and they took all of the remaining debris with them, and then they turned to the villagers and said, "Give me a dun dun dun. Nothing to see here. It was
Dun, dun, dun,
Russia." Yeah, yeah, it was them
dun,
Russians.
dun, dun.
Yeah, it was them Russians. It was a crashed Russian satellite. People in the village are like, "No, there were 6 of them. 3 were on the ground, 3 were in the air, and they were retrieving stuff and probably saving people." That's what they were doing. It wasn't a crashed Russian satellite, but the Greek Air Force comes in, cleans up everything, cleans up the area, says blames it on the Russians. They turn around and split, and that's the end of the story.
And when the Air Force said it was a satellite, no one believed them. They're like, "Oh, no, 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 you're right. It wasn't a satellite. It was a small plane crash. That's
Yes,
what it was."
yes, yes. They
And then the
changed. Yes,
villagers
yes.
were saying, "Dude, you can't change the story. It's just as bad as the first one you gave us. We know what we saw. We saw 6 craft in the sky. Some crashed. We saw that kind of retrieval program, and then retrieval program for these craft. But on top of that, the local residents, the next day, early in the morning, they found a dark, burned oval shape with edges so precise they appeared to be as if it was cut with a knife, along with tiny metallic fragments and small wires as well. And then after
Mhm.
that was seen, the whole fiasco happened. That's when the Greek Air Force came in and started doing and bringing in their cleanup crew to take away the remaining evidence. But this one that took place September 2nd of 1990, it's a pretty recent one, but
It is.
it's not usually a case that people think of when they think of really a crash retrieval program here. It's we need to talk about this one a little bit more, I feel like, just for future reference.
Well, it's
Rush
only
should have brought
because
this up.
oh, well, okay, here's the thing. The press, once the government comes in and says it's the Russians, or it's swamp gas, or it's a weather balloon, or it was a small plane that crashed, the press is going to lose interest in the case, and that's all they want. They just want this completely suppressed, swept under the rug, and nothing to see here. We need to move on. And this is a classic example of a method of operation that happens all the time, all year long throughout history. With cases like this, and the cover up starts. Once the cover up starts, the case is done, unless researchers like you or myself bring it back up again. But the press, once it's not UFOs, it's not ET, and it's something mundane like swamp gas or a Russian satellite, it's case
Or
closed.
mysterious drones. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
right.
Truly
Exactly.
disappointing, but that's just the narrative that we live in, but that's why we have our job, Jimmy, to not let these cases die, to revive them back from the dead and say, "Hey, just look at this case, look at these details, and then you can make up your own mind on what you believe here." Jimmy, thank you so much for being on the show today. We really missed you after these several weeks. Before we head out, who do you have on Fade to Black today?
Tonight, I have on Eric Wargo, and we are going to be talking about his research into precognition, time travel, and UFOs, and how it is all connected. Tonight on Fade to Black. Cristina, great to be back. Thank you so much, everybody. You are the best. I'll see you tonight on Fade to Black. Thank you, Cristina.
Thank you. And if you enjoyed the show, hit that like button right down below. Subscribe if you enjoy UFO news, updates, case studies, and interviews. And share this channel with those that you want to keep in the know with all the latest UFO news and all of the case studies right here. Before we head out, I want to say thank you to everyone catching this live. It's been a while. And to all the super chats, Michael, AJ, Legend, and Android, I appreciate all of you. Thank you guys so much. I will see you very soon. Be safe. And remember, keep your eyes on the skies. enjoy the strange and the mysterious, UFOs, the paranormal, and cryptids, this channel is for you. So make sure to subscribe, as I do 3 videos right here every single week, and hit that notification bell so you do not miss any of the bonus content I post right here.